Welcome to this group's presentation on rhetorical devices. Numbers 23, 25, 26, 27. Presented by Jason Aguilar, Angel Hernandez, Gregory Herrera, Adan Mena, Katrin Gadulshin,
and Tanagoji. The formal names of these devices might be confusing, but certainly their use is extremely important for someone who wants to be a top-notch writer. Definition: downplay a negative point with a positive one, or vice versa. Types: negative to positive, positive to negative. Effect: emphasis, persuasion, or point out or address objections. Examples of negative to positive:
Professor Mena,
called me
Jeremiah,
me again, but at least she knows I exist. I had to sit in the back of the class today, but at least no one will get sick. Examples of positive to negative: he may have turned in his homework, but he cheated on all of it.
Professor Mena,
Thinks I'm as smart as,
Samuel,
but in reality, I am a pretty average student.
Asyndeton and polysyndeton. What are they? Well, asyndeton is the absence of conjunctions within a sentence. Polysyndeton is the exact opposite, where there's conjunctions within the sentence, a multitude of them. So, in both asyndeton and polysyndeton, you would use them when you have lists or just between clauses. And the effect this makes depends, but it's usually for clarification or changing the pace of your sentences, also allowing emphasis on the ideas you present within your sentences. So an example of asyndeton is
Adan Mena,
works on his forearms, biceps, triceps on arm day. Notice how there's no conjunctions in between the list of muscles that Adan Mena is working out. Another one from a famous play is, "Are all thy conquests, glories, triumphs, spoils shrunk to this little measure?" And this is from Julius Caesar by William Shakespeare. For polysyndeton, some examples are, Felix loves his dad and mom and brother and sister and dog. Notice how there's a use of "and" repetitively within the sentence. Another example is, Brandon does not like sharing and caring and playing. There doesn't have to be an abundance of conjunctions, just 2 or 3 would count as polysyndeton.
The next rhetorical device is zeugma. Now, before we hop on to the definitions and examples, it is important to grasp on the concept that with the mastery of this device, you can join 2 worlds in the ranks of skillful writers. So the definition of zeugma is a figure of speech where one preposition or word joins 2 subjects in the same phrase, sometimes with separate definitions. Well, most of the time. To the several of you who don't know what a preposition means, it means a word governing and usually preceding a noun or a pronoun and expressing a relation to another word or element in the clause. For example, the man on the platform, or she arrived after dinner. On and after are prepositions. Continuing on where we left off, typically, zeugma implies that one of the words or prepositions is commonly used when the other is used as an idiom, which is a word that is different from that of a literal meaning. For an example on the right, she firmly held her tongue and his hand. Or, they covered themselves with dust and glory. As a zeugma comes from a Greek root meaning joining or a bond, it is its job to connect parts of the sentence with the same verb. By doing so, it creates connections between 2 ideas and concepts, and it is able to create drama, add emotion, or produce even levels of shock value. This is why a zeugma is important in that you need skill to create an effective one. The purpose of a zeugma either may puzzle the reader or motivate them to think deeper. At times, it is also used to create an artistic effect as well as establish emphasis on certain ideas to make it an effective rhetorical device if used properly. Before we move on to the examples, there are 3 types of different zeugmas that are all very effective, but can be used in a different style from one another. The first type, or prozeugma, is a term reference or word that is followed by the related words. To understand this better, an example might be hatred, love, cruelty, compassion. This type combines 2 different words with opposite meanings and evokes emotion into the reader, along with deep thought. The next type of a zeugma is a dizeugma. This type combines a singular subject with several verbs. For example, I wanted to go swim, bike ride, bake, and shop. There is one subject and multiple verbs follow. Last but not least, the third type of zeugma is hypozeugma. The hypozeugma is kind of the opposite of dizeugma. It is able to join several subjects with one verb. For example, giraffes, gorillas, pandas, and zebras broke out of the zoo. The several subjects would be the animals, as the verb will be that they broke out. As you can tell, zeugma also uses parallelism, in that there are multiple clauses in which the joining word applies. Moving on to the examples in literature. The first example we have presented today is from The Adventures of Tom Sawyer, written by Mark Twain. And it goes, "And all the people saw the thunderings, and the lightnings, and the noise of the trumpet, and the mountain smoking. And when the people saw it, they were moved and stood afar off." The author was able to apply multiple subjects to a single verb, which was saw. This may be a good example because it can submerge readers into imaginative thoughts, able to specifically display the connections between concepts and ideas. This quote falls into the category of a hypozeugma as well. The zeugma examples mentioned above can demonstrate that this literary device can construct confusing or alarming sentences and thoughts. If used properly, however, it adds on another element to literary texts by creating a dramatic impact which may be surprising in its outcome. For an example of an ineffective zeugma, which is not on the slides, we can use "She dug for gold and for praise in the ground." This example is ineffective because you cannot find praise in the ground, and it might often confuse readers while reading it. To change and correct it, you can say, "She dug for gold in the ground and for praise." It sounds more flowy than the ineffective example and may give readers a better understanding. Remember to always implement this device carefully and not too oftenly. Be careful to use them in your formal writing, where the goal is always to be clear and direct as possible. Also, try to avoid using them as thesis statements or topic sentences in the paragraph. Always make sure the reader can understand and can build off of the initial purpose of implementing zeugma. On a positive note, they can be really good for artistic and literary work like poems.
Synecdoche and metonymy. Definition of synecdoche is when you're using part of something to refer to the whole. Metonymy, using related words or concepts to refer to something. Types of synecdoche: microcosm and macrocosm. Macrocosm is the phrase for synecdoche in which a smaller part signifies a larger whole. Macrocosm, on the other hand, is the phrase for synecdoche in which a larger whole signifies a smaller collection of parts. Examples of synecdoche are: lend me a hand and help me find some netherite. Gregorian gave me a ride to school in his new wheels. Examples of metonymy are:
Abdul Rakesh Jabir III.
Kramer was called by the office because of something he said. Another example is: the school decided not to lower anyone's grades.
Okay, so for a quick recap, antagogy will place criticism and compliment together in a sentence in order to lessen the impact of that initial criticism. Okay, moving on. Ascendantin conjunctions, while polyscendantin adds conjunctions. Ascendantin does that in order to shorten it and focus on a specific meaning within the sentence, while polyscendantin can either have one or two effects, it'll add a sense of excitement towards the sentence, or in order to just change the whole sentence's rhythm. Okay, moving on. And now for zeugma. Zeugma uses one word to modify two other words, essentially linking one word to two thoughts. Alright, now for
Synecdoche.
goat and metonymy.
Synecdoche.
Goat is often mistaken to be metonymy, and while they do resemble one another, they're not really the same, I'll be honest. And
Synecdoche.
it refers to the whole of a thing by any of its smaller parts. While in metonymy, the word used to describe a thing is closely linked instead of rather being part of it. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Jason.
Please pause the video and answer the question.
March to St. Petersburg. By now, you should have realized that feudalism doesn't work. I don't believe that Nicholas feels the way we do about Russia.